Hello, I'm Toycat, and Minecraft has officially begun previews for its next update, 1.21.40, and sadly, one of the very first things they did was making the Enchanted golden apple regeneration equivalent to that of a cooked beef on Java. Why did they do this? Are we doomed to just get this bad parity on Bedrock? And also, what parity bugs should Mojang actually be focusing their time on? If you're a Mojang developer or anyone who's curious and just want to skip ahead to that last part, you can use the chapters on this video, but otherwise, here's exactly what happened. Mojang started the previews and betas for a new Bedrock update this last week, and the only new feature that they really made is bundle changes, which is obviously going to be a major feature of this update, but they also made some parity changes, which often can be good news, and it was in these cases, but it was less so for these three. And of course, we can say the small nerf to mushroom stems is no big deal. Who is using that to compost anyway? We can say that a block going away from the creative inventory is a little silly, but sillier still is choosing to match Java Edition on this particular bug fix. It looks like a really well-intentioned move on the surface. After all, there shouldn't be an extra powerful Enchanted Golden Apple just on the Bedrock Edition and not on Java. However, the biggest problem with deciding to nerf it on Bedrock is that the Bedrock regeneration system just doesn't work the same as Java. And so by fixing the two items, you've actually created two items which work entirely different. This is a broader symptom of attempting to address anything to do with combat. If you try to fix any one part of the combat system, you're going to break the entire thing. If you don't add the slower swinging at the same speed as the faster regeneration, you could argue there's a balance issue. If you don't add the better damage for axes at the same speed as lower swing speed, then you're not going to have anyone using those axes, and basically so on and so forth. Every single part of the new combat system from Java came together on that version, and so you need to add it to Bedrock at the same time, or you'll get a very differently balanced version of the game. Arguably, you could say that everything that's come out since 1.9 has been balanced for Java and just kind of awkwardly existing on Bedrock, which is why outside of the Wither, which is specifically different, every challenge is just balanced different and arguably wrong. This should be a huge priority for them, and so why is it that they've nerfed the Enchanted Golden Apple without touching those systems? Well, let's talk about the argument in favor, because this could just be step one in the change to equalize combat, and obviously this is an important fix to make whether or not combat ever is going to be. You could say, however, I would say the easy argument against is that you shouldn't do the easy steps first. This is true for basically any project. You should work on the most meaningful steps first if you're aiming to release them. If there is a real and meaningful good faith attempt at parity, then it's going to need to start with the new combat system, or at the very least the offhand system, one of the most sought after parts of it, and you cannot just add one part of this without the rest. To give an example as to why, imagine if Bedrock didn't have crossbows in the game and they were added, but there were no arrows at the same time. It would be pointless, and the crossbow would seem worse just for being extra less worthwhile. This is something that I think is important, but I also think it's important for Minecraft to just re-examine what they do with parity altogether. Obviously, the way this happened was not some grand plan from Mojang to secretly screw over the Bedrock Edition, but instead someone fixed a single bug which was listed as a bug because it was different to Java, and this is why Minecraft needs to have a concrete public policy on what they actually intend to do with parity. They need to re-examine what they mean when they say parity, because otherwise you might have a change which technically brings the two versions together, but actually brings them further apart, like this Enchanted Golden Apple one. I think that some changes are also just negative in general. The removal of certain grass colors from Bedrock or the boat things are great examples, but I think that even more harmful than that is when you remove a decent feature, and removing that decent feature actively does make the games less similar rather than more. You know, it sounds like a joke to say, yeah, Mojang added a parity fix this week that brought the games further apart, but that is precisely what they did. I think it is therefore important, in the same way that they have a roadmap for the game and they plan out the next few major updates across Java and Bedrock, they need to have a Bedrock-specific roadmap for parity. We are getting all sorts of parity features coming, including in the update that will likely drop in the next week or two, 1.20, 1.30. Minecraft are making lots of attempts at adding new features to Bedrock from Java, and that is honestly pretty awesome. I'm excited for that and I think it's great, but if it's just coming at a random order, then that is very confusing. As a community, we should know when to expect and what to expect, and ideally that wouldn't be coming from the preview, because now, by the time it's in the game and anyone has any idea of what's happening, it's already, gone through a lot of work from a developer that now, best case scenario, they revert that work, but I think it would be much better if we just had an idea of roughly what we were expecting, because as it is now, we just get a random assortment of parity features, which is just slightly slightly odd. By the way, I also want to mention, just on the slightly odd note, the changelog for this week's preview had some really oddballs in there. So they had a realms change that was described as added a new realm event. Can you discover it? And it's like, what sort of a changelog has a question mark at the end of the line? Anyway, yeah, I think it's really fun in a lot of different ways. I think it's great that they're working on so many bug fixes every single week. Again, you might miss these sorts of things because they're not the sexy changes that make it into a thumbnail or title, but ultimately they've made all sorts of great changes, such as polar bears now dropping cooked fish when on fire when they die, piglins celebrate free sound working, the fact that creepers, when hit by a bog, will now drop a music disc, the sort of thing that you wouldn't notice until it broke and it would have annoyed you. I love that they're fixing these things. It's just annoying that what they get bundled into that is the bad things too. And that's why I want to make clear, if anyone is watching this from the Mojang team or who has any influence over there, I would love to list from the community's perspective the bugs that we think are the most important. And so, hello, I'm AbbyXToyCat, and welcome back to another top 5 video. This time we're on the Java edition, and yes, I'm shamelessly reusing my oldest bugs world. And for this top 5 list, I want to be very clear that I won't be including features that I would really love, but that I can concede take a huge amount of work from multiple teams. So things like the creative inventory needing a reorganizing, or things like adding custom superflat would be great, but that requires a lot of work from a lot of people, a lot of signing off, whereas a single bug fix doesn't take so much work. And so let's start this top 5 list with beacons actually working as beacons. Right now, beacons are only visible up to the edge of your simulation distance, or 64 blocks to be precise, and this has a real problem because it means that beacons don't actually work. On the Java edition, which I'm playing, yes, that's right, I'm playing on the version which has weirdly boned salmon, don't question it, but on this version of the game, you can see that beacons are visible all the way to the edge of your render distance. This is because the Java version has certain items which are only visible within simulation distance. A great example is chests or the books inside of this. If I move back slightly, you can see the book becomes invisible. Don't ask me how they decide what is what, but the beacon should definitely be visible inside of your render distance at all times. This is because it's a beacon. It's in the name. It doesn't function as its core purpose, which is a really annoying thing because lots of people want to use them that way and would expect them to be that way, and so it's just a simple change that would cause a lot of frustration to go away. Similarly, the sort of fix that you don't even know is a problem until you see it is the idea that on the Java edition, when you have a minecart and the minecart hits you, the minecart will reverse course. Oh, I wasn't expecting this to go that way necessarily. As you can see, it bounces off me and then I can push it forwards. In the Bedrock version, you don't affect the speed of moving minecarts, which is really frustrating to say the least. Being able to push minecarts and being able to stop them is something that lots of people expect, and although I would say there are benefits the other way around, I don't necessarily like them. Similarly, here are 2 oak boats, and you know, as much as I'd love to say whichever way around floats your boat is the way they should do it, something I love about the Java edition is the fact that boat physics affect other boat physics, and so in other words, you can nudge other boats with your boat. This is not possible on Bedrock, and it just feels a bit weird and broken. The moment someone points it out to you, you can't help but say, but why does this need to be this way to begin with? And it is very frustrating. It's why it's the 3rd on my top 5 list. However, the 2nd on my top 5 list is kind of coming back to this simulation distance, render distance. You might be familiar with the fact that both of these numbers are configurable, and on Java, you can configure both directly from your game. You can also change difficulty and a few other things quite easily here. This is very, very handy, and as you can see, I can just decide to up my simulation distance, even past my render distance, weirdly enough. But on the Bedrock version, if you want to do the same, you need to leave your game and then reload it. This is a problem for people that have lower-end devices, and so it's one I'd love to see fixed, partially for that reason, but partially because of the fact that there are all sorts of bugs to do with certain simulation distances, and so turning it up and down at will would be a little nicer, in my opinion. Speaking of a little nicer, one of the things that we know Mojang has the data for on Bedrock because they reveal it in certain places, but will not have be public, is statistics, and it's one of my favorite Java exclusives. I would love to use this collection of things that you've done. Oh wait, what's happening here? I would love to use this collection of things that you've mined, times you've used it or picked it up or dropped it. It's such a cool way to monitor how long you've been on a world. I would love to see the data for how many cauldrons I've filled or cake slices eaten in my Let's Play world, and I'm really really bummed out I don't have this. And the same is true, the reason I bring up this list is because these are the ones which come up most often for me from other people who have long-term survival worlds. Sure, when you're playing Minecraft for the first, 60, 70 minutes over and over and over again, you might not notice some of these things, but when you try to have different contraptions or move things around your world or have these cool marker points, it's something that I think would be easily fixed. I don't want to ever trivialize the job of someone who works at Mojang as you just change a line of code here or there, but I think certainly the same difficulty of fixing as the Enchanted Apple, and unlike fixing the Enchanted Golden Apple, you won't raise a whole barrel of concerns about parity, but instead you'll get an applause from the Bedrock community, which ultimately is hopefully the goal of parity to begin with. So yeah, that is just my recommendations here in this video. Obviously, I hope that they fix all of the bugs that exist on Bedrock, and indeed I hope that they fix all of the parity concerns, and that one day we have an ultimate Minecraft. But as time goes on, I start to question, is that even the goal, and can it ever be? And I guess that's where I'll leave this video. Speaking of this video, I hope that you've enjoyed it. Be sure to check out the Big Salmon plush. It is available right now, and if you get it, if you do decide to purchase one, not only will you get a limited time product, but also it will be with you in time for Christmas, so it makes a great gift if you're looking at maybe getting a second one or otherwise. It's part of a big event that Makeship are doing called Blockship Mayhem, Block Battle Mayhem, and as a result, there's going to be some fun parts of that. But just know that this is a special one-time event, and it's the last one that will be happening on this channel in a very long time. So if you want to have a piece of history, get yourself the Big Salmon plush. And if you don't, then, I don't know, play the Weirdly Boned Salmon edition and don't buy yourself anything. And just think to yourself how much nicer things could be if we just had one edition of Minecraft in terms of combat, in terms of beacons, in terms of minecarts, and in terms of options. But maybe I'm dreaming too much now. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, because I'll see you next time. Goodbye.